All right, now let's get to our discussion. Of course, on Friday, we can't finish the bulletin without going through Biz Chat, where we are going to be looking at some of the stories that have been making headlines in the world of business during the week and getting just to look at the perspective at which these stories are going to impact on Kenyans. And with me is Odhiambo Ramogi, who is here, who is an economist. He's here to just give us his perspective. And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. So first of all, let us look at the issue with banks. And yesterday I was having a conversation and we were looking at startups. And one of the challenges was the financing that startups usually don't get, actually. So first of all, let us look at banks financing startups, which has been a major issue this week.
Oh, thank you. So yes, it is true that banks do not finance startups, and it's a big challenge. On one hand, they generally prefer to lend to established businesses, big businesses, and not micro and small enterprises, and not startups. And this is partly because the government has spoiled banks with some very good bonds and instruments. A bank CEO can actually just lend to the government and go and play golf, and at the end of the year still report sterling performance to shareholders. And so he doesn't need to work hard to lend to the private sector for him to make profits. But ironically, when COVID struck, research indicated that small businesses performed better than big corporates in terms of resilience towards COVID-19, which means that there is a level of high risk associated with the big businesses as opposed to the small businesses that the banks have not recognized because they prefer the big businesses because of the lower risks associated with the big businesses, and they shun away from small businesses and startups because of the high risks. Particularly since the establishment of the ICDC in the 70s until now, we do not have a scheme where the government on large scale supports startups. What we've seen is Youth Fund, Women Fund, and Uwezo Fund, which generally focus towards groups, youth groups, women groups, etc., and not an individual entrepreneur. And this has made it difficult for entrepreneurs to access financing. And when they go to banks, banks can now have other ways of saying they'll give you money by saying, you know what, open an account with us, start putting in money for 6 months, then we'll see and we'll consider giving you money. And then when you apply, they want collateral. And the cost of, for example, assessing the collateral is too high. On the other hand, if you have a piece of land out of Nairobi, if, for example, you come from Kadhonzweni and you want to give that title as collateral, it will not be accepted. They want property in Nairobi. And this is slowing down growth.
And now, also on that point of collateral and looking at how very many people who start small businesses, really, the collateral that you have might not even be enough to cover you to be given a loan. So what does this mean for this for this sector of startups and small businesses going forward, even as we are now in a new year, we are coming even to start a new month in the coming week. So what does this mean for small businesses?
Let me start from where we are, and then after that we can talk about moving forward.
Yes.
Where we are, as small, especially startups, struggle. And if you have an idea and you want to implement it, you either have to go into your savings or sell an asset and then use that money and pump it into the startup. And when it's over, pray to God that 3 years have elapsed so that a bank can give you money, or that an investor has seen what you're doing and they are interested in investing in your business. And this is why you find that many tech startups have financing from foreigners as opposed to local investors. And there was a joke, of course, that most startups in Kenya, the founders are all foreigners, whites in particular. And so you do not find your local Tom, Dick and Otieno starting a business and then running it and then successfully accessing the investment financing. And so it's a struggle, and many businesses fail. Up to 80% of startups do not make it beyond the 3-year mark because of some of these challenges. Of course, there are other factors like capacity, there are factors like access to markets, but financing is a big problem. Moving forward, the government has come up with what you call the Hustler Fund. Now, the architect of the Hustler Fund, David Ndii, has said repeatedly that this first phase is not meant for businesses. It's meant for individuals who are unable to access credit from elsewhere.
Yes.
Which is very telling, because really 500 shillings would not enable you to commence a proper business. We expect that the second phase will be for small businesses, so that you can borrow something significant and start a business and run that business to a point where then the banks can look at you favorably. The second thing, however, is monetary policy. We need to come to a point where our monetary policy is favorable to the private sector, because as it is right now, the government is crowding out the private sector and is making it even more difficult for startups to access money from the banks. And I think that needs to be reviewed, either through guaranteed financing with the banks, or directly like what we used to have, the ICDC, with good governance profile. I think we can still eke out something for small startups. Yes.
All right, I'm being told our time is up. So now, before we go for a short break, now going forward, maybe in the coming months, next year at a time like this, what are we looking at in terms of this major issue?
If the government does nothing, we'll probably be here, and the economy will get worse, because more and more foreign companies are leaving. And we are not investing significantly and strategically into our own ideas and businesses. And so if nothing changes, we'll be where we are, probably worse. If, however, we go into the second phase of Hustler, maybe much better. You never know. Maybe we'll get there.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. That's it. Well, let's go to BBC Money Daily and look at what they have for us.